Okay, so that feeling, right? The office lights are buzzing, your inbox is just endless, and you're thinking, is this really it for the next, what, 30 years?
Yeah, you're definitely not alone in thinking that.
Uh-huh. And that's why today we're diving deep into something else, a path to maybe retiring early using rental properties. We've been looking at how some folks are pulling it off like way earlier than usual, mid-30s, early 40s.
It's really interesting. There's this growing number of people who aren't just waiting for retirement. They're actively building a life where their money works for them
Yeah.
sooner rather than later.
Exactly. It's not just wishing, it's strategy.
Right.
And it's not just for people who started rich either. We looked at this guy, Jason. Started out renting, just like many of us, but he followed this specific plan and retired at 41, living off rental income.
Yeah. And that's the key takeaway for everyone listening, I think. It wasn't luck. It was a plan, step by step. Our mission today is basically to unpack that plan, see how he did it, and, figure out how you might be able to use those same ideas.
Okay, let's get into the nuts and bolts then. Step one for Jason was figuring out his freedom number. And this wasn't just like a random guess.
No, not at all. It was a really deliberate calculation. He had to sit down and figure out, okay, what do I actually need each month to live comfortably and feel, financially free?
So what did that look like for him?
He looked at everything, his mortgage, food, yeah, but also travel, hobbies, the stuff that makes life enjoyable. And he landed on $6,000 a month.
6,000
Right.
already.
But the important thing is that was his number. Yours might be totally different depending on your lifestyle, your goals.
Right. And having that target, that $6 K, that must have anchored everything else, right? Made it real.
Precisely. It wasn't just a fuzzy dream anymore. It was a concrete goal.
Mm.
You can work backward from a specific number, which leads to the question for you listening. What's your number? What monthly passive income do you need?
Definitely something to think about. Okay, so step one, know your target. Then step two, buy the first rental. And Jason's approach here was smart. He didn't aim for the moon right away. He started small, a duplex.
Yeah, the classic house hacking strategy. Buy a small multi-unit, live in one part, rent out the other.
And the benefit?
Well, for Jason, the rent he collected pretty much covered his own mortgage.
Wow, so he was basically
Living for free,
Done.
essentially, or very close to it, which meant he could save money way faster for the next property.
That's a clever way in, building equity, getting income, and cutting your own biggest expense. Kind of a financial double whammy.
Totally. House hacking is really effective for getting started because it lowers the financial barrier and gives you immediate results. You don't need a massive down payment saved up.
Right.
You could look at a duplex, a triplex, maybe even just renting rooms in a single-family home.
Okay, so he's living cheap, saving fast, now he wants to grow. Step three, the BRRRR method. Sounds like a cold noise.
Huh, yeah, it does. But it stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. It was Jason's key strategy for scaling up without constantly needing, huge piles of new cash.
Okay, break that down. How does it work?
So you find a property, usually one that needs a bit of work, maybe it's undervalued. You buy it, often at a discount. Then you renovate it, fix it up, make it nicer, which increases its value.
Right. Make it desirable for renters.
Exactly. Then you rent it out, get that cash flow started. And here's the really clever part. You refinance the property based on its new higher value, the after repair value.
Ah, so you're borrowing against the increased equity you just created?
Precisely. And ideally, you pull out most or even all of your original investment plus the renovation costs. Then you take that money and repeat the process on the next property.
So you're basically recycling your initial capital over and over again. You don't need to save up a whole new down payment each time.
That's the power of it. Your money isn't just sitting there tied up. It's constantly moving, acquiring more assets. It allows for much faster growth. So, for listeners, it begs the question, are you looking for those kinds of opportunities, those potential BRRR deals in your area?
Good point. Okay, so Jason's using BRRR, his portfolio is growing, but managing multiple properties, tenants, toilets, that sounds like a job in itself.
Oh, it absolutely can be. And that brings us neatly to step 4, shifting from being an active landlord to a more passive owner.
How do you do that?
He hired a property management company.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
But doesn't that eat into the profits?
It does, yeah. You typically pay a percentage of the rent, maybe 8 to 12%, something like that.
Right.
But you have to weigh that cost against the value of your own time and freedom.
Right. What exactly do they handle?
Pretty much everything operational, finding and screening tenants, collecting rent, dealing with maintenance calls, handling and evictions if necessary.
Yeah.
All the day-to-day stuff that can really drain your energy.
So it's the cost of making the income truly passive. They handle the headaches.
Exactly. For Jason and anyone aiming for early retirement, this step is crucial. You leverage their expertise so you can actually step back. It's something to seriously consider once you have, say, a few properties.
Okay, makes sense. So Jason puts all these steps together, and step 5, he hits the target. He actually exits the rat race.
Yeah. Once he got to, I think it was 10 rental units, the combined income was around $7,200 a month.
Which was more than his $6,000 freedom number.
Right. So at 41, he quit his job. Done.
Wow, just done.
Yep. No more boss, no fixed schedule, no more trading hours for dollars. His assets were working for him. It's the outcome of that consistent plan.
That's incredibly motivating. It really shows it's possible. It's about reclaiming your time, isn't it?
Absolutely. Which leads back to the listener again. Are you tracking your own passive income progress? Have you even thought about setting a target date for your own potential early retirement?
Yeah, those are big questions.
And Jason's story, it's not magic. He just followed a plan. So it's worth asking yourself honestly, what is your freedom number? Really nail it down. And then what's actually stopping you from buying that first rental? What are the fears or obstacles? And fundamentally, are you willing to commit to the process?
Because it does take commitment. It's not overnight.
Definitely not. But the advantage with real estate, especially for this kind of long-term goal, is time. The sooner you start, even small, the more time your money has to grow and compound.
Okay, so let's recap the steps quickly. 1, define your freedom number. Know your target.
2, buy that first rental. House hacking is a great way in.
3, scale up smartly, maybe using BRRRR to recycle capital.
4, transition to passive ownership. Hire a property manager when the time's right.
And 5, hit your number, achieve that freedom, and exit the traditional path if that's your goal.
And really, often the hardest part is just taking that very first step.
So what's that first step going to be for you listening? Crunching the numbers, researching duplexes, just making the decision to start?
Whatever it is, doing something today gets you closer.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to chew on. Beyond just not having to work, if you did retire decades early, what would you actually do with that freedom? What passions would you finally have time for?
Yeah, thinking about that why, that can be incredibly powerful motivation for the journey ahead. Something to think about.